The overwhelming success of Thriller transformed Michael Jackson into a worldwide phenomenon. But even as his fame reached unimaginable heights, his commitment to rehearsal never changed. If anything, the expectations he placed upon himself became even greater. Every new project demanded fresh ideas, more complex choreography, and performances capable of surpassing everything he had accomplished before. Rather than relying on his reputation, Michael continued approaching each rehearsal as though he still had something to prove. One of the clearest examples of this relentless pursuit of perfection appears in the private home rehearsal footage recorded before the legendary Motown 25 television special in 1983. Today, this footage is regarded by many fans as one of the most valuable glimpses into Michael's creative process because it captures the birth of a moment that would forever change entertainment history. Unlike the glamorous television performance that millions eventually witnessed, these rehearsals took place in complete privacy. There were no cheering crowds, dazzling lights, or expensive costumes. Instead, Michael stood alone in a simple practice room, surrounded only by mirrors and determination. The isolation is striking. Every movement, every pause, and every adjustment demonstrates an artist relying solely on discipline rather than outside encouragement. His primary focus during these sessions was the routine for Billie Jean. More specifically, he devoted extraordinary attention to perfecting a backward glide that audiences would later know as the moonwalk. Contrary to popular belief, the move did not suddenly appear on stage as a spontaneous burst of genius. It was the product of endless repetition. The rehearsal footage shows Michael gliding backward across the floor before stopping abruptly to analyze his own movement. He studies the timing of his feet, shifts his weight, adjusts his posture, and immediately tries again. Sometimes the difference between one attempt and the next is almost invisible to an ordinary observer. Yet for Michael, those tiny details determined whether the illusion looked believable. Again and again, he repeated the sequence until every heel drop blended seamlessly into the next motion. His goal wasn't simply to slide backward. It was to convince viewers that he was floating effortlessly across the stage. That magical illusion depended on countless microscopic adjustments that only someone obsessed with precision would even notice. Watching these rehearsals completely changes one's appreciation of the moonwalk. Instead of appearing as a mysterious trick, it becomes evidence of extraordinary patience. Michael understood that spectacular performances are rarely created through shortcuts. They emerge from relentless refinement, where hundreds of imperfect attempts eventually produce one unforgettable moment. When he finally debuted the move during the Motown 25 special, audiences around the world reacted with disbelief. Television viewers watched in amazement as Michael appeared to defy the laws of physics, creating one of the most iconic moments in music history. Yet behind those few breathtaking seconds stood countless hours spent practicing alone in silence. The rehearsal footage reminds us that true greatness often develops far away from public attention. While millions celebrated the finished performance, very few ever saw the countless repetitions that made such perfection possible. The following year brought another enormous challenge: the Victory Tour in 1984. This massive concert production required not only exceptional choreography, but also careful planning to ensure every movement remained visible inside enormous stadiums packed with tens of thousands of fans. Rare rehearsal footage filmed inside an empty arena reveals a side of Michael that audiences rarely witnessed. Without screaming crowds filling the seats, the cavernous stadium feels almost lifeless. Yet Michael performs with exactly the same intensity he would later display during sold-out concerts. Dressed casually and wearing heavy knee pads for protection, he spends much of the rehearsal testing the stage itself. Every surface behaves differently, and Michael refuses to leave anything to chance. He repeatedly practices his famous spin, followed immediately by his dramatic toe stand, paying close attention to how the floor responds beneath his feet. One particularly fascinating aspect of this footage is the audio. Instead of polished music accompanying the routine, viewers hear Michael calling instructions across the empty arena. He communicates constantly with lighting crews, sound technicians, and production staff, requesting adjustments whenever something fails to match his vision. After executing a lightning-fast spin, he immediately asks for a spotlight correction. Another sequence prompts changes to the sound levels. These moments reveal that Michael's performances extended far beyond dancing alone. He understood that lighting, staging, music, and choreography all work together to create a complete theatrical experience. His attention to detail bordered on astonishing. Even though no audience occupied the stadium, Michael imagined exactly how every movement would appear from the furthest seat in the highest section. If a gesture couldn't be seen clearly from hundreds of feet away, he refined it until it carried maximum visual impact. This meticulous preparation explains why his concerts felt so extraordinary. Every dramatic pause, every perfectly timed spotlight, and every explosive dance sequence resulted from careful planning long before opening night ever arrived. By 1986, Michael found himself exploring an entirely different creative challenge while filming Disney's ambitious science fiction project, Captain EO. Unlike traditional stage performances, this production required choreography specifically designed for a three-dimensional cinematic experience. The unusual setting forced Michael to rethink how he moved. Wearing an early prototype of his futuristic costume, he discovered that the bulky outfit significantly restricted his usual freedom. Heavy materials altered his balance, while the oversized suit limited the speed and flexibility that had become central to his dance style. Instead of becoming frustrated, Michael adapted. Working closely with the creative team, he modified many of his signature movements so they remained visually effective despite the costume's limitations. His popping sequences became slightly broader, allowing audiences to appreciate the motion more clearly through the bulky outfit. Every adjustment reflected his remarkable ability to solve creative problems through experimentation rather than compromise. The rehearsal footage also captures him collaborating with director Francis Ford Coppola, carefully discussing camera angles and movement placement. Together, they explored how choreography could maximize the immersive visual effects that the groundbreaking 3D presentation hoped to achieve. What makes these rehearsals especially fascinating is Michael's willingness to reinvent himself for entirely different artistic environments. Rather than repeating familiar routines, he embraced new technical challenges and discovered innovative ways to express movement under unfamiliar conditions. Only a year later, another transformation was underway. The release of the Bad album in 1987 marked a dramatic shift in Michael Jackson's image. Gone were the softer styles associated with earlier performances. In their place emerged a sharper, more aggressive stage persona built upon confidence, attitude, and street-inspired choreography. Rare rehearsal footage from this period captures Michael working alongside choreographer Jeffrey Daniel inside a mirrored dance studio. Without elaborate costumes or dramatic subway sets, attention focuses entirely on the choreography itself. The atmosphere is electric. Michael repeatedly practices the confrontational routines that would define the famous subway dance scene. Every movement emphasizes strength and precision. Sharp turns, sudden stops, rapid spins, and powerful jacket pulls are rehearsed again and again until they become instinctive. One of the most impressive aspects of these sessions is Michael's understanding of body weight. He constantly experiments with how shifting his center of gravity affects the power behind each movement. A slight adjustment in posture transforms an ordinary step into something filled with authority and dramatic tension. Rather than simply dancing to the music, Michael uses every gesture to tell a story. His movements communicate confidence, defiance, and determination without requiring a single spoken word. These rehearsals also demonstrate his deep respect for evolving street dance culture. Instead of merely borrowing popular styles, Michael studied them carefully before blending them with his own distinctive technique. The result became a fresh visual language that appealed to audiences around the world while still honoring the influences that inspired it. As this chapter of Michael Jackson's career unfolded, one truth became impossible to ignore. Whether rehearsing alone inside a quiet studio, directing dancers through complicated routines, testing stage equipment in empty arenas, or adapting choreography for futuristic film productions, his philosophy remained remarkably consistent. Perfection was never an accident. It was built through discipline, patience, countless repetitions, and an unwavering belief that every performance could always become just a little bit better. End of part 1, approximately 2,000 words. As Michael Jackson refined the bold, street-inspired choreography that defined the Bad Era, he never stopped searching for ways to elevate every performance. Success had already made him the biggest entertainer in the world, but he refused to become comfortable. Every rehearsal became another opportunity to improve, experiment, and challenge himself. While audiences only witnessed the finished product, the countless hours spent behind closed doors revealed an artist whose greatest competition was always himself. One remarkable rehearsal from 1987 centers on "The Way You Make Me Feel." Unlike some of his explosive solo routines, this performance relied heavily on synchronization between Michael and his team of backup dancers. At first glance, the choreography appeared relaxed and effortless, but the rehearsal footage tells a very different story. Inside the rehearsal studio, Michael worked tirelessly with his dancers to perfect every detail of the routine. Without colorful costumes or elaborate city street sets, the focus rested entirely on movement and timing. Every dancer practiced the famous shadowing sequences repeatedly until their bodies moved almost as a single unit. Michael constantly watched the mirrors surrounding the room. Even while dancing himself, his attention rarely left the rest of the group. If one performer moved a fraction of a second too early or too late, he immediately stopped the rehearsal to make corrections. What amazed those who worked with him was the incredible precision he expected. Timing wasn't measured simply in beats of music. It was measured in tiny fractions of a second. Michael carefully explained exactly when each foot should slide forward, when every shoulder should turn, and when each body should freeze. Although he remained friendly throughout rehearsals, his expectations never wavered. He understood that true synchronization created a visual rhythm just as important as the music itself. When every dancer moved together perfectly, Michael's own performance appeared even more